Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rampton Parver from the Safe Step. I'm very excited to welcome you all to making the business case for digital safety investment with Cameron Stevens, founder of the Safety Innovation Academy. So just a brief intro on Cameron. Cameron's a health and safety professional dedicated to step-changing health and safety performance with emerging technologies, and is now considered Australia's leading safety technologist. He juggles his time between employee, founder, startup advisor, and volunteer roles, all with the relentless pursuit to improve the health and safety of work, technology and innovation. Now, before we hand over to Cameron, it would be great to get the audience's participation and views on the following question. So, do you use the reduction of injury rates as a measure for success for your digital safety investment? If we can please get you to input your answers into either the chat or the Q&A sections, whichever you prefer, that would be great. Fantastic. And with that, I'll hand over to Cameron.
Thanks very much, Rampton, and thanks everybody for joining. And I hope I'll do the mandatory "can you hear me" and "can you see me" call cry that you have to do every time you do a webinar. So, Rampton, can you give me positive confirmation that I'm live and loud and clear?
You are indeed, Cameron.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And thanks everybody who wasn't able to attend live but is listening to this as a recording. Certainly flexibility in this day and age is critically important to get the word out. So I firstly want to go through the agenda. So we'll get through this presentation within the hour and get you on your way for the rest of the day. We're going to start off with some definitions about what digital safety investment is, and specifically talk about what I mean by making the business case. This is different to writing the business case or a business case blueprint or something like that. So we'll start off with some definitions. We'll then spend a little bit of time talking about a typical safety technology deployment. So what typically happens in an organization when a safety technology or a digital safety supported program is rolled out. And then we'll look at some tips for how to make the business case for a digital safety investment of your own. We'll do some Q&A and obviously throughout the presentation, if there are any questions that come up that are pertinent, please fire them into the chat or the Q&A section, and Rampton will butt in and ask me those questions if they're at the right time. So first of all, before we start, I want to talk about the collaboration that's come about between the Safe Step and the Safety Innovation Academy. So I was approached by, we need to go back and then start that video again. So just give me 2 seconds. When I said this wasn't my first rodeo, it clearly was to the team beforehand. So this is a 4-part series within a collaboration of the Safe Step and the Safety Innovation Academy. There's 4 webinars. This is the first one today. So thanks very much again for joining. Next quarter, we'll be talking about demonstrating due diligence with wearable computing. We'll then turn to ethics and the considerations for sustainable safety innovation. And finally, the last quarter of the year, we'll talk about digital safety strategy for 2022. So this came about with a discussion with Joe Skipper and Aaron from the Safe Step around wanting to try and provide information and guidance and support to the profession, the health and safety profession, around emerging technologies and safety innovation. And so this 4-part webinar series is aimed to do that. So thanks very much to the Safe Step for giving us the platform to do and the reach that you have and the investment into the health and safety community. And now a little bit about me. So what gives me the right to talk to you about this? I consider myself a digital safety concierge, a safety technologist and a safety futurist. They're all big words, but they come with a backing of where I've come from. So I started as a physiotherapist. I did a Bachelor of Science in Physiotherapy, then my Master's in Ergonomic Safety and Health. Spent a large portion of my career in the oil and gas sector, both on and offshore, and working all over the world. Most recently in Alaska and Papua New Guinea with Oil Search based out of Sydney, but I'm born and bred in Perth and spent a lot of my early career working in health-related roles, both in the insurer for rehabilitation, for a VOC rehab provider, injury prevention roles across the councils of Western Australia, and spent some time at the West Australian Water Corporation. Then I was very much attracted to technology and how that had the potential to step change health and safety outcomes. I started a few small businesses to do that, most recently the Safety Innovation Academy. Prior to that, Percolate Ideas, and I've consulted with the Knowledge Society, which is an innovation think tank group. And right now I'm also an employee of RealWear, which is a head-mounted wearable computing company, and have many dozens of deployments of technology across enterprise through all different industry verticals across Australia and the world. So that's the experience I bring to the discussion. And within my role of the Safety Innovation Academy, I partner with different safety technology startups and have some really key insights into the discussions that they're having with the customers that they're working with. So this is giving you an understanding of the types of things that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis as a self-proclaimed safety technologist. So let's have a look at unpacking the topic. So making the business case, purposefully making. So what are the ingredients that you need to bring in, like you're making or baking a cake, to get a business case across the line as it relates to digital safety investment? And therefore, what is a digital safety investment? Most people, when they talk about digital safety, they're talking about taking paper-based systems and implementing an EHS software. Now, that is not what I'm wanting to be talking about today, although the topic does apply to that particular type of digitization. This is more about the hardware and software combination that you would use to change the safety of work. So a particular hazard that's going to be changed by implementing a sensor type technology, real-time monitor, maybe paired up with the mobile application, some form of wearable computer, wearable hardware, interconnected sensors. Those types of things are more what I'm talking about today as a digital safety investment. And also perhaps some of the visualization tools that you use to take that data and then understand the real-time insights that that data is providing you. And you'll see a few of the friends of the Safety Innovation Academy here. So folks that I either advise, partner with, or simply just like their technology and have seen some of their deployments. So the types of technologies we're talking about here are these types of technologies. So RiskTalk is a voice-activated risk management tool, which enables you to speak a risk assessment rather than have to type it out, or and keeps your eyes out looking at the hazards around you. Preventure is one of the wearable sensor products on the market for musculoskeletal injury prevention and improving awareness of musculoskeletal risk. Spacecraft is a product that's still in beta and will be released shortly, which is visualizing spatially information, really great for planning out timelines from incident investigations or mapping out traffic management solutions. There's all sorts of different things you can do with Spacecraft. RoboRig is an industrial Internet of Things crane load sensor that enables you to orientate loads on the hook of a crane, not having to have your hands on the load at all with taglines, and there's a few other things it does. Shout out to my New Zealand colleagues over at ThinkSafe, which is an EHS software platform, and Skills VR solution, virtual reality training solution. Seeing Machines is a product for in-vehicle monitoring and fatigue management. Facilitate, a local Perth company that look after the mass deployment, scale deployment of virtual reality and immersive training. WorkSafe Guardian is a product I've been testing recently for lone worker protection, and RealWear is the company I work with, which is a wearable computing company. So with digital safety investment, what I mean is these types of solutions to as they apply to health and safety use cases. So that's the discussion we're having today. These types of tech implemented into a business at scale to step change and transform the way that you're currently performing either health and safety management tasks or mitigating specific risk categories. So let's move now to what's currently happening. So what's the current state of play in relation to safety technology deployment? So those types of technologies that I just talked about before, software and hardware solutions or combinations of the two. So typically what happens is what we're seeing at the moment, particularly in 2021, really since probably around about 2015 onwards, is we've seen innovation come up as a category of the strategic plan of an organization. So we want to be more innovative. And that has now translated, and we're starting to see that for health and safety roles. So health and safety managers having in their plans for the following year, or maybe it's a 3-year plan, innovation as a category. We're also seeing that even for regulators are putting innovation as a category down. You know, we want to innovate. So what we're finding is companies are going to trade shows, they may be looking at webinars, and they're going through LinkedIn and seeing different things. And they are basically going, well, this company has a free trial or a low-cost pilot, so we will have a go at do that and just see what's out there. So I call that the innovation tick box, and effectively it doesn't necessarily lead to any form of transformational change, and it certainly often leads to what I call sort of pilot churn, or the organization stays in pilot mode and the technology doesn't see the benefits across the total organization. So pilot mode is a real classic place where a lot of organizations get stuck when it comes to digital safety investment. And that's because most organizations go for pilot first, business case second, rather than having a well-structured business case that's linked into a strategy that will have the pilot as one of the phases of the business case. So we'll do the pilot to validate some of our assumptions, and then we'll scale that throughout the organization, typically in stages, to manage the cost and the effort and the time that it takes for people to actually get these technologies through the business. So Risk Talk, I advise Risk Talk strategically as a startup, and they have hundreds of customers, and out of those hundreds of customers, most or every single one of them, apart from I think it's 1 or 2, have a business case already developed when they come to ask Risk Talk to have a go at potentially trialing their product. So Risk Talk do a free trial, and most organizations will come and do that free trial with no business case behind them. And they'll literally just be having a go and seeing what happens. Now, that approach, which is the typical approach to safety tech discovery, is really what's kind of hindering progress moving forward. So a lack of strategy, a lack of forecasting of how these technologies could potentially work together to solve health and safety challenges in your organization leads us into that pilot churn. So from there, what we're also seeing is that most health and safety technologies, or technologies that have the ability to improve health and safety outcomes, will typically be managed under the control of the budget of the health and safety manager. And there may be a small amount of money that's offered to have a go at trying to do new and innovative things. And they'll be relatively low cost, and they will very much be within the realms of a pilot. And again, you're stuck in pilot. There's no trigger to then scale that across into operations and maintenance and further out throughout the organization. And lastly, when I see organizations put together a business case for their digital safety investment, almost exclusively, the metric for success is, if I implement this technology, then I will get a reduction in injury rates, or I will get a reduction in my insurance premium because I'll get a reduction in injury rates. So we asked the question at the start, and Rampton, if you could chime in now and perhaps answer that question. What came in the chat as the answer to that question?
Yeah, really interesting, Cameron. I think it's we're probably leaning 60% to no or not currently, and 40% to yes. But I think where there are some themes around, yes, we do use it, but looking to shift this.
Yeah, and look, it's a really hard one not to include it. And this is not unique for safety technology. It's for all safety initiatives. You might be updating your induction process, or you might be implementing something new that's or slightly changed the way you did it. There's an investment required, and the effort is going to result in a reduction in injuries. And of course, that's the end goal, is that we want to try and improve the health and safety of work, and by doing that, reduce injury rates. However, we get stuck in this, because it's a health and safety initiative, it must have injury rates associated with it. And that is currently what's happening. Certainly, I'm going to make the assumption that a lot of the folks on the line are, future focused, and are certainly keeping up to date with the challenges around doing that. So I'm not surprised why the folks on this call are sort of more leaning towards no, we don't, but also probably grappling with the fact that, well, what are my alternatives? So is there some secret sauce that we can talk about to try and shift the dial? And the answer to that is, well, I can't give you like the perfect solution, but I can give you some ideas. And these ideas are founded from what I have seen as being the successful ingredients for making the business case for the several hundred now technology deployments that I've done over the last 5 years. So first of all, it's very much being clear about what is the business problem or business problems that we're trying to solve. Now, obviously, in relation to health and safety, clearly we've got health and safety challenges we're trying to solve, but thinking more broadly around the strategic business problems that are things we're trying to understand and grapple with that could impact health and safety as well. The best example of that right now is travel restrictions with COVID-19. That's a significant challenge for the business, and being clear on what the dimensions of that problem are and how that impacts on health and safety, and being very clear about what the dimensions of the issue are, will then enable you to be far more strategic about implementing new technology. So the process before about how technology is being sort of played with at the moment is a little bit tech for the sake of tech. And this is the antidote to that. This is technology to help solve a business problem. So I talk a lot about digital safety strategy, and what I mean by that, it's just a nice way to talk about the term of taking your business strategy, your IT strategy, and your health and safety strategy, and combining them together to support each other. So often it's very rare that I would see a health and safety strategic plan be informed by IT, and IT's plan be informed by safety. This is, when I say digital safety strategy, I mean those two strategic plans get looked at together in the context of the rest of the business challenges that are going on. So with a digital safety strategy, you'll be far more likely to achieve, to get your solutions that you're wanting to see in the business, because they will be more aligned with the strategic direction of what's going next. This requires a little bit of digital literacy from the safety professionals as it relates to things like internet connectivity, Wi-Fi protocols, cybersecurity, some of the integration elements between software and hardware that are needed to be successful. So there is an element of upskilling yourself and being curious around how can I improve my own knowledge around to have that conversation. And that's, I think, why some people would feel uncomfortable about actually getting strategically linked with IT, because there's a bit of a disconnect in language, and very much why IT doesn't connect with safety, because there's a huge disconnect in the language that health and safety professionals use. A good way to try and demonstrate your value as a health and safety professional to the existing strategic plan is to identify technologies that already exist in the organization, or ones that are currently being tabled for use, and being very purposeful about helping that team that are looking to deploy that technology, helping them craft health and safety use cases for that tech. Now, that is a little bit tech for the sake of tech, but what it does do is it demonstrates that you are looking for creative ways to utilize the existing or the already flagged for introduction tools and technologies that can be used to solve operational or financial challenges or travel challenges, and using the benefits of those products to help augment your health and safety strategy. If it's a piece of technology that is very much for you, a musculoskeletal risk management platform, for example, is a good one. Perhaps like a wearable sensor, like the Preventure sensors. At that point, it's a really good idea to crowdsource throughout other parts of the organization ways that they think the technology could potentially benefit them. So a wearable technology sensor may be beneficial to the finance team around being able to mitigate insurance premiums or even be able to access insurance funding. And that's the next point here about there are ways to unlock grants, government grants, insurance funds. Certainly there have been several technology deployments that I've done that have been funded or part funded by insurers or research and development grants. So the finance team might see that as an R&D incentive or a tax offset, and you might not know that that's a possible option unless you have that conversation. The redesign for operational workflow of like a factory floor layout and the supply chain process and bringing inventory in one area of the factory and how it moves through and how people interact with that is absolutely an outcome that you could get from a wearable sensor. So as a health and safety manager, you might be looking at how the technology improves your knowledge of back and shoulder injury risk, but through the GPS tracking, you can also monitor flow throughout the factory. And then that could potentially help ops and maintenance or an ergonomist with a redesign, or you may be then looking to move factories from one location to another and how you could use those sensors to help set that up. Or it might be you are about to go and redesign the layout of a truck for operational benefit, and you can use these sensors to also improve that design. So it's crowdsourcing ideas for your business case throughout different areas of the business and not just making it a health and safety use case only. Generally speaking, if you focus on the user experience of the technology that you're putting in place and have that as your metrics for success, so user engagement, how likely is it that people will use it, that also helps make the business case for your investment. If you have the option to somehow link your technology to saving time, and that's often linked with user experience. So if it's more likely for me to do something because I have a good user experience with my technology suite, then that will potentially save time and effort, perhaps with administration, so post data capture administration. And therefore, if it saves time, it saves money. And you can turn almost all of your health and safety technology options into some form of time-saving metric and therefore a bottom line dollar return on investment. And I'll give you an example of that as we go through. So what are some of the things that, rather than the injury metrics, what can we look at in terms of our return on investment and, more importantly, our impact or value to the business? Those metrics for success are some ideas. So some of the things that I'm seeing are around engagement metrics. That might be the number of people using a product, the experience that they have. It might just be unsolicited feedback. When I see products like the Risk Talk product being used, often the feedback is, it was so much better using this product than the other way, or the way we do it existing. So how do you document that as like a pre and post value addition? Well, often it will come down to something like the project manager saying, it now only takes me 5 minutes to do my risk assessment with far better quality than it did before, where I had to have 15 minutes writing it down and then filing it and then putting it somewhere else. So therefore, I can turn that engagement metric into a dollar return on investment through time saving. One of the main metrics for success for a technology deployment is just generally how much of the organization is a target to adopt it. So if a technology is only designed to be used by a very small portion of the business, for example, the health and safety team, then it's far less likely that you'll be able to make the business case for a large dollar investment, because there's only a small number of people using it, unless the impact is significant. So the further spread the technology can be, which is why crowdsourcing use cases is so important, the technology will be more sustainable. And by it being more sustainable and penetrating further throughout the organization, it's more likely you'll tip that pilot churn that we were talking about before to scale across the organization. And the prize that we're getting with most health and safety technologies realistically is real-time risk information. And we need to focus on, so with risk, we have the definition that I like to use for risk is the uncertainty on objectives. So how uncertain are we that we are we going to meet a particular objective in our organization, and applying, if I can get more information in real time about that risk, the more likely I'm going to be able to meet those objectives and reduce the uncertainty. And those types of things can be applied to compliance type tasks. And I'm not, I think the compliance discussion with health and safety technology is very much linked to the user experience. So compliance tasks are required in our organizations, and there's always a lot of banter going on at the moment around the different safety philosophies around compliance-driven tasks and more safety of work outcome tasks. But if we take that aside, there are compliance objectives that we have to achieve in an organization. Safety technologies or emerging technologies have the ability to improve the experience of the worker when it comes to completing a compliance task. So even something like providing a site induction before a worker has to perform a task, and they need to be provided with certain types of information about the hazards and risks at that environment. You might be wanting to implement a virtual reality or a simulator type solution into your organization that will provide a far better experience to meet the compliance requirement and more likely achieve a better outcome for the worker in relation to their experience and their engagement. And those are the types of metrics you can put into your business case. As I said before, anything that has the ability to save time has the ability to save money, and therefore will always boost your business case to enable it to be successful. I might just quickly ask Ramton if there's any pertinent questions that have come up in the chat. If there isn't, then folks, get into the chat. If there's any of these comments that I'm making that resonate, please engage. Ramton, is there anything there before we go into some examples?
Not as of yet, Cameron.
Disappointing, team.
Sorry, no, there is. So Jeanette has asked, what is the definition of technology?
What is the definition of technology? I've never been asked that question before. I don't think I've ever thought about it. Good question. Let me have a think about it, and I'll try and give you a non-rambly answer. I'll see if I can go through the presentation and think, and then come back to a succinct answer at the end. If you could hold that one for me, Ramton, that's a good one. Thanks, Jeanette, for throwing a curveball. I asked for it and I got it. So let's have a look at some examples and put it into practice. I'm going to give you two examples. One, Movis, which is a company based in Brizzy that have a product called the Fit Machine. And what it is a condition monitoring sensor. It's an industrial Internet of Things sensor that gives you the ability to connect to the internet the parameters of a machine. So vibration, temperature, acoustics, those types of things will be streamed live to the internet onto a dashboard to give you real-time knowledge of a machine. So we're going to talk about that. This is what it looks like. It's just a little dot, little sensor dot that goes onto the equipment. So I'm going to talk about the business case as it relates to deploying the Fit Machine sensor for de-sliming screens at a coal handling preparation plant. So you can see here, and pardon me looking down, or you can't really see. Okay, so you can see this sort of cage area, and those two dots are inside the other side of the cage, which are providing both acoustic monitoring and vibration monitoring for these screens at this coal facility. So it was very much a maintenance and reliability-led use case. So I don't have the full details of this, as a little bit secondhand information, but it's to give you more of a real world tangible example. It's not something that I deployed personally. The next one I did, so I can give you a bit more information. But the idea here is that it's a maintenance and reliability led use case. And in relation to getting the funding and getting the technology deployed, maintenance and reliability were the key drivers. The outcomes of this particular case study were such that $1.7 million in unplanned downtime were realised, savings were realised by having continuous monitoring of the vibration and acoustics. So this is an example of an existing technology that's getting trialled out in the business that has significant health and safety benefits that, when looking to scale this technology across the organisation, would be really valuable for the maintenance and reliability teams to have. So this is where the health and safety professional has the opportunity to get involved with the maintenance and reliability team and look at the potential benefits that the technology has, so that you enable that business case to be bolstered with health and safety use cases that benefit the health and safety team, the organisation, and the people that are trying to implement the business case. So in this particular instance, not having to put your hands into that cage environment means that you mitigate pinch and crush risk. You don't necessarily have to, it's also operational benefit in terms of not having to write as many permits and shut down the unit to get safe access. There's actually coal dust in this area as well. So it's coal dust and noise, so health benefits as well. And those are the types of things that the health and safety team can do to partner with that part of the organisation to help them with their business case. And the reason for doing that is that when you want to implement your technology for your business case, you have allies that are more likely to help you boost yours. So this is the RealWear head-mounted tablet. It's the company I work for, so disclaimer there. It's also the topic of our next webinar. So shameless promotion for the next webinar on due diligence, health and safety due diligence with wearable computing, which is on June 24th. And so this is a head-mounted tablet. Basically, it's a ruggedized wearable computer that connects to different PPE. And what it does is it gives you a real-time view of what's going on in the first person. So the business case for this example was a board due diligence use case. So what was happening in this organization was there were dashboards coming out of the EHS management system software, which the health and safety team would put together into traffic light dashboard and provide that to the board sustainability, safety and health committee. And that would provide them with a health status, or a status of the controls as it related to critical risks. So fatal risks in the organisation, a traffic light system that let them know what is the status of the controls, and the board would be provided the dashboard, and they would say, well, that part of the process is green, so all of those controls are green and we're good, and those ones are amber. There certainly weren't any reds, and let's move on to the next topic. Now, from a due diligence perspective, and this is my view on this, is that is absolutely not giving enough understanding of the status of the controls as it relates to fatal risks in that organisation. So the health and safety manager decided that what he wanted to do in this case, was to provide real-time view from the field of these hazards and risks into the board meetings to get clarity on the different health status in real time of the controls in the field. And we'll unpack that in far more detail in the next webinar. But that was the use case. Now, the investment was, reasonably sizable for that particular health and safety team and their budget. So it really needed a little bit more of an enterprise discussion to determine whether or not, this technology would be viable for that particular use case. And when you apply those different tips and tricks to this, as I said before, crowdsourcing different ideas, getting other people involved, focusing on the user experience, mapping out the adoption likelihood, determining how many other people in the organization could also utilize this technology for benefit, then the business case was starting to weigh up. So the health and safety manager engaged operations and maintenance, demonstrated to them the option of the solution and said, with COVID-19 in place and travel restrictions, you can now get remote vendor support coming in. And we could do a quick calculation based on travel, cost, time, how many flights we'd save, and we could quickly build up a dollar return on investment for that, which in this case was something in the order of a 30,000% return on investment, $1.1 million in annual savings for the cost of a $3,000 unit. So it was quite easy for that to get across the line in terms of the business case. So again, it's an example of, if you have a health and safety technology that you're wanting to try and improve outcomes for your own benefits, have a look at, does that technology potentially improve the user experience? Is it likely to be used across more people in the organization? So what's your engagement metrics? What's your business spread? How many other people could benefit? And is there a time-based saving which then relates to cost? Then you're more likely to get that business case across the line. So that's effectively the summary of today. Be clear on what the business problems are that you're trying to solve. Be very strategic about those and collaborative around how you develop your strategic plans. Start with potentially, and you don't have to do this, but have a go at considering, well, there's already technology that's just been procured by the operations team. Maybe there's some safety use cases I can tack onto that to help drive the further adoption of that technology if it's a successful technology. If that user experience is good and the adoption is there, then what you'll find is it'll become sticky in the organization quite quickly, and your business case will get made almost for you. Tap into insurance, have a chat to your insurers to find out, do they have technology funds? Are there research and development incentives through government organizations, or there's certainly grants that some of the technology providers can get to perhaps reduce the cost of your upfront investment. And then have a look at your success criteria. Time equals money, and it's a really easy one to look at in terms of if it's engaging and you have a good user experience, it's likely it's going to save you time. And if you can say that the technology is A, going to get used, and B, will get used by a large amount of the organization, it's likely that you're going to get your business case approved. So it's time now for Q&A, and I am going to have a go at answering the first question.
Well, Cameron, sorry, if I can, I'll just put it into context. I think so. We had some further clarification. So it was, what's the definition of technology in this context? I think the attendee just commented on, so far you were only referring to hardware. Is that right?
I'm going to go back to the start. So these technologies here are all examples of technologies under that banner. I'll try and unpack them a little bit to answer the question. So EHS software is going to digitize your paper-based safety management system, ultimately. So if you look at your safety management system at all of the different components, you might have leadership, you might have risk management, you might have training and competency, you might have contractor management. Those are the incident investigation, learning from incidents. They're all parts of your safety management system, generally speaking. All of those have the ability to be enhanced digitally and with the use of hardware and software combination. So by digitally enhanced, I mean, is there a platform like an EHS software platform that enables you to collate all of that information to give you insight hardware is more likely going to give you more real-time insight. So sensors, wearable computers, CCTV cameras, vehicle monitoring, like IVMS type in-vehicle monitoring systems, fatigue management products. They are a combination of a hardware and a software. A hardware in isolation will almost never give you an outcome. You almost always need to have it connected with some form of software to give you insights. A lot of these different softwares work in isolation from each other. So the anticipatory analytics point here and business intelligence visualization is getting independent software products or independent data streams and trying to provide some way of giving you intelligence, either predictive, anticipatory, or just real time. So those are the types of things that I mean when I talk about digital safety or safety innovation, safety technology. That's kind of the banner, the bucket that I'm putting them in.
Right.
Does that
Thank you, Cameron.
answer the question, do you think?
It has, yeah. Look, we've got some other great questions. So the next one is really like your point on building strategy with both EHS and IT being engaged. How can we overcome our language barriers?
Really great question. Awesome question. So it really starts with being, I call it an innovation mindset, but it's basically just being curious. So it's like with all of your, so if you just ask the same question, how do we get over operational knowledge versus engineering knowledge or language, sorry. Every part of the organization has its own levels of acronyms. Every part of the organization has its own tribal language that they use. And it's really just about being curious and not judging what the way that the language or the way that the terms are used in those parts. And if you don't know what some of them are, be genuinely curious about finding out. And I believe that once you have a little bit more of the language under your belt, just like when you go to a new country, if you can learn a little bit of the local language, a few of the local customs, you're more likely to get a richer experience. It's exactly the same when it comes to safety and IT. We just haven't traditionally seen them as a partnered organization or a set of partners in the organization. IT has typically served health and safety, and health and safety has typically served the rest of the organization in terms of delivering outcomes. But we haven't traditionally seen IT and safety as really significant business partners together. So that is a really strong relationship to build. And it starts with simply getting to know your IT team, just saying hello. If they're an outsourced IT team, again, rather than just calling them for, I need help with my computer because it's broken, or I need a new laptop, or can you get me another mouse, or I need something else. It's, is there something we could help you with, or what's next? What's on the roadmap? Like, what's happening with the internet connectivity? Are we looking at that at this site? Or is there anything I can do to help you with your business case around trying to expand the Wi-Fi network? So that's kind of where I think you should start. There's a particular exercise that I like to get people to do, which I will send out to the participants, which is about mapping connectivity at sites and then partnering with IT to come up with a solution.
Right. Thank you, Cameron. The next question is, what's the best platform or provider to use to capture and analyze all the metadata from the technology? And how could it be used to predict and mitigate the impact of risk?
So it's a phenomenally complex question in terms of there's many, many metrics there. And it would really be dependent on your business context. And the reason why, it doesn't surprise me that the question's being asked, because there is no one answer based on context. And there are several softwares that are trying to do what you're asking, but they tend to, almost all of them in their own right, tend to fail in one metric or another. So the underlying scenario here is be very, very clear on what you're trying to achieve and partner strongly with your technology solution providers. So when you are going to, well, I call it developing your functional and non-functional requirements for a solution that you would love to have and don't know if it exists. So what are your functional requirements? So what are the minimum mandatory things? What are the functions that that technology has to do? You know, it has to capture photo data. It has to capture photo data in JPEG format, in other TIFF format or some other format that you capture your photos in. It must be available offline. It has to be available offline as a function. It can't be connected to the internet because of our site. Those types of things, you have to be very clear about documenting your functional requirements. And then your non-functional requirements will be potentially color schemes. Is it activated by voice or not? There's different non-functional requirements that may be more contextualized for your area. Once you've documented those out, then it's a matter of partnering with your technology vendors to determine which of those solutions meet those requirements and which ones don't, and how flexible is that organization or agile are they to be able to potentially meet your needs. But there is no silver bullet at the moment. There are products coming out in the market. There's an excellent one in Perth called Single Source. And what it's doing is it's taking disparate systems. So let's say data streams from your IVMS product, so your in-vehicle monitoring, your fatigue monitoring sensors. It's taking information from your planning solution and your work order management solution. It's taking all of your data streams, sensors from the weather, sensors from the Bureau of Meteorology, all being entered into, as the name suggests, a single source. And it enables you to get that information. So the question that was asked, single source sounds like an example of a product that would do that. Would I say it is the product? It would depend on your functional and non-functional requirements. And that is a skill to develop, and absolutely something that is worth spending time researching how to develop functional and non-functional requirements.
Thank you for that, Cameron. The next question is, in your view, what's the best way to engage with design and construction teams to build this into their design thinking, increasing reliability, safety, and effectiveness?
Sometimes it's a little bit of just lead by example. Sometimes if you're not getting traction, you have to show. I think video recording you doing something that you know works, or getting a technology vendor to video something that gives a medium that people can understand, and then providing it back to them in a forum that enables them to digest it, is a good way to start. So if you're not getting engagement with folks up front, put the challenge back to them with a solution in a format that's easy for them to understand. And I think video is the best. And the best way to get that engagement. If I've misunderstood the question, that may not be helpful. So if that person wants to get in touch with me, please feel free to do that. While I say that, my email address is on the screen. If you get out your mobile phone and click on that QR code, it'll take you to the Safety Innovation Academy page on LinkedIn, and follow that for these types of updates. And if you ever want to ask me a question, fire me an email.
Yeah, no, that's answered the question. Thank you, Cameron. The last one is it better to build the case with a division who will benefit from the outcome rather than building a health and safety team business case?
Without doubt. So this is about what is the problem you're trying to solve. And more than likely, the problem that you're trying to solve is not a problem for the health and safety team specifically. And if it is, and it's only going to be beneficial for the health and safety team, then that's the stuff where I'm talking about. It may need to fit within your budget stream. But it should always be about when it comes to health and safety in particular, it should always be about the worker, the frontline worker that's exposed to the risk. If you can solve a challenge for them, you are doing a service to your organization, and you will, in my view, improve the safety of work. You will see injuries reduce as a result. You will see the experience of work be better. You will have a better workplace. That's what you should be focusing on. Let me be crystal clear here that implementing technology for the sake of technology is the worst thing you can do. implementing technology because you believe that there is a strong likelihood that it is going to improve the experience of work and therefore the safety of work, then that's what we should be focusing on. It's about the user experience and the problems we're trying to solve. It is not about trying to look good because you're putting in a technology that's fancy and makes you cutting edge. That is absolutely not what we should be doing as health and safety professionals, and very much the antithesis of what I represent. It's absolutely problem and value focused. And if technology is an option that we've never tried before and has the potential, that's what we're trying to unlock here. We're not trying to just do it because it's cool. It's because we haven't tried it. We've tried everything else. We're stuck. We're not getting any better. We're just seeing things plateau. Is there something else? Could there be something that we haven't tried that could work? It's about being curious. It's about being strategic. That's what we're all about.
Fantastic, Cameron. That wraps up the questions. So, Cameron, on behalf of all that have attended today, thank you. It's been really informative and thought-provoking. And just as a reminder to our participants, the webinar's been recorded and will be uploaded onto the SafeStep website next week. We can also find recordings of past webinars. And as a reminder, as Cameron mentioned, this is the first of a 4-part series, and then the second webinar to be held on the 24th of June. And we look forward to continuing the dialogue with you all. Cameron, thanks again.
Just one last thing before we go.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, so thanks again for everybody for attending. It's really hard to get feedback on what I'm throwing out in webinar format. If there's any chance you could drop me a line either on LinkedIn or personal email, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, am I hitting the mark? Am I missing the mark? Am I looking at the camera enough? Which I got last time. All feedback is super valuable and it's really hard to get it. So any feedback of any description, negative, positive, constructive, any way is really, really appreciated. So thanks again to the SafeStep. Thanks everybody for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar in June.
Absolutely. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.